Hey everyone, what's going on? In order to fully understand this video, you're going to have to watch some links in the description. And I know they're long, but that is the only way that this video is going to make more sense to you. And possibly if you could just go back and watch my last 10 or 15 videos, it will make a lot of sense. But what I talk about is how ancient knowledge is being used within our mainstream media and our sports leagues, among other things. And also, every single day, there is this code that exists. And if you pay enough attention, you can pick up on patterns that exist within this world. And, you know, there is something much bigger in this world that is going on. Just if you watch some links in the description, you can learn to apply what I'm saying, and you'll be able to follow along a lot better. But what's interesting is, I just moved into a new house. I haven't had a whole lot of time here. We're still moving some stuff in, and I've just kind of been out of the loop a little bit. But I got on the internet on a couple days ago, and I noticed that Zachary K. Hubbard had made these videos about the movie Rosemary's Baby, and also, it was a movie directed, I believe, by this guy named Roman Polanski. And then he made a whole video about Roman Polanski. And if you look at his blog post, the first thing that it talks about in this Roman Polanski post is how he got accused of rape for a rape that happened on March 10th. And if you've been following what I have been saying, this number 310 and the date of March 10th have been super duper important to this Slipknot narrative that is connected to a number of things. And Slipknot is going to be playing at the Iowa State Fair for the first time ever on August 10th this year. And keep in mind, they are a band from Iowa, so this is the first time they're ever playing at the Iowa State Fair on August 10th. They're also releasing their newest album on the date of August 9th. And Roman Polanski is important because he was married to Sharon Tate, who Charles Manson and the Manson family, they went in and murdered Sharon Tate and so on, right? That murder just so happened to happen on August 9th. And the very next night, they went and they also murdered some other people on August 10th, right? So August 9th, August 10th, things that are synced up to Slipknot. And a big piece of what I have been talking about is how this year is a Chinese pig year, and that's why France is important, and that's why Francis Bacon gematria and Frank Baconus gematria are important because, bacon, pigs, and so on. And like I said, I'll leave some links in the description, but just know that the pig year is important. Think about Charles Manson and whatnot, and they wrote death to pigs on the wall when they murdered people, right? And there's also the Beatles song called Piggies. I've just talked a whole lot about all of this and previous stuff. And I just found it odd that Zach was just out of nowhere talking about Rosemary's Baby and Roman Polanski and so on. And then I noticed his post about Roman Polanski's supposed rape that was on March 10th, this big number that I've been following. And also, Charles Manson just so happened to die 3 months and 10 days after the anniversary of the Sharon Tate murder, Roman Polanski's wife. It was 2019. It was in 2017, right? But he died on November 19th. It doesn't really change the amount of days. And look, it's 3 months and 10 days that Charles Manson died after murdering Roman Polanski's wife. And then Roman Polanski gets this rape thing on him on the date of 3/10. And there's all this stuff with the troll theme. If you followed my videos, let me just go to my videos really quick. If you followed my videos, I've talked all about this troll theme, how it's synced up to a number of things, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, then Buffy the Vampire Slayer's in the media, and so on. But a big thing with the troll theme is when I was a little kid, there was this movie called The Trolleys, and it's like a sing along, and one of the main songs that I remember them singing was the song Kokomo. And the reason that this is so important is because the Beach Boys wrote the song Kokomo, and the Beach Boys have this connection to Charles Manson, right? Was Dennis Wilson was let Charles Manson live with him for a while, and so on, right? So I know that this troll theme is somehow synced up to Charles Manson, and I've even documented about it, you know. We just had the death of Doris Day, and let me find the death of Doris Day here, just to show you. I've been talking about this a whole lot, and I know that somebody's been talking about it on Zach's radio show for, you know, clear back in November they were talking about it even. But that's why he just randomly made these videos, you know, because it's synchronicity, you know, and he's talking about something that's synced up to what I have been documenting about for, you know, a number of months. And let me just type in Doris Day up here. I want to show you something about Doris Day, this famous actress that we just had. She died in what, May 13th or something? May 13th. What's interesting about her is that her son is Terry Melcher. And Terry Melcher, for one, he died on the, you know, he died on the same day that Charles Manson died, but he died in 2004 and Manson died in 2017. But he's the guy who wouldn't give Charles Manson a record deal. And the house that Sharon Tate had lived in, he had previously lived there and he moved out. And then about, what was it, 7 or 8 months later, that's when the Tate murders happened at the ex-house of this guy, right? So this guy even knew Marilyn Manson, or Charles Manson, and so on. And then we get the death of his mother, so I knew there was something connected to Charles Manson yet again. There's something important to that. We also just got the death of this other old lady, Anderson Cooper's mother, Gloria Vanderbilt, and first thing I was thinking of is that, you know, the College World Series is going on right now, and Vanderbilt just so happens to be in the College World Series, and, you know, they're still in the College World Series. But when I went and looked this old lady up, it talks about how Paul McCartney wrote a song called Mrs. Vanderbilt, and it was a song that was loosely based on this lady's life. And if you know anything about Paul McCartney and the Beatles, Charles Manson based his whole Helter Skelter theory off of the Beatles. So it's just interesting that this old lady would die, and she has a connection to Paul McCartney, the Beatles, the Helter Skelter theory about blacks rising up, and so on, right? We also recently had that story about the, oh, I can't think of the Manson family member who didn't get parole. Let me see if I can find it here. This lady right here, she was up for parole. We got the story in early June, June 4th, or that's when I blogged about it at least, and how she didn't get parole. And that's where I talked about how it said death to pigs. And this murder was on August 10th, this big date that I have been talking about in connection to France and Slipknot and the death of Paul Gray, right? Paul Gray was known as the Pig, which is important because it's the pig year and so on. Then we just got the death of the Slipknot, what is it, Slipknot guitarist, the daughter, and so on. But in this post, I also mentioned how Roman Polanski was connected to Kevin Spacey just before Charles Manson had died. If you go back and watch my videos in October and November of 2017, I was talking about how there's this big narrative with Marilyn Manson getting injured with the gun prop falling on him, and he was coming out with that new album called Say 10, I believe, or Heaven Upside Down, but I had the song called Say 10 on it. But we also got a story about, oh, what is her name? I can't think of it. Marilyn Monroe. So we had a Marilyn Monroe story in the mainstream media. We had Marilyn Manson getting injured a whole lot, and that's Marilyn Manson got his name from Charles Manson and Marilyn Monroe. And there was all the stuff with the kneeling during the national anthem. Trump called out the kneeling on September 23rd and a bunch of other things. But think about the kneeling in regards to, black people rising up, like the helter skelter theory. And then I talked about how it was all connected to Charles Manson, and then Charles Manson ends up dying in November. And anyway, right around that same time, we were getting stories about Kevin Spacey and the Me Too movement, right? And Kevin Spacey being a sexual predator and whatnot. And there was that Family Guy episode called Don't Make Me Over, where Stewie says he was trapped in Kevin Spacey's basement. But if you looked up that episode, it said that originally in the script it was supposed to say in Roman Polanski's basement, but then they changed it to Kevin Spacey. And even more interesting about that episode is that the episode is all about how the family starts this family band, like the Partridge Family. And I even mentioned that, like the Partridge Family, and they go around and tour the world and so on. And then right around, just after, I think it was just after Charles Manson died, just a few days later, we got the death of David Cassidy, the guy who was in the Partridge Family. And there was a big Stand By Me narrative and some other things. But notice, so the same day that we got this story about the Manson follower, we got a story about Kevin Spacey within the news, right? And what's interesting is just today now we're getting another story about Kevin Spacey in the mainstream media. And Kevin Spacey, Roman Polanski, it's all important to France. I am telling you, I've been talking about France being important for a while now. And August 10th this year, when Slipknot plays the first time at the Iowa State Fair, it is the 227th anniversary of the fall of the French monarchy. That equals 227. And French Revolution equals 227. And Napoleon born on the 227th day. And much, much more. All about this big number. The Nice, France van attack that happened on the 227th anniversary of the storming of the Bastille. I believe, I don't remember what year that was, but we also had that Toronto van attack that we just had the Toronto Raptors win the NBA Finals and so on. But Roman Polanski, when he left, he just so happened he fled the United States back to France, and he's also from France, which is interesting. If I can even spell it here, Roman Polanski, there we go. I just want to point it out, Roman Polanski, he was born in Paris, France. When he fled, after that rape, he fled back to, he went to London, but then he eventually went back to France, right? And France is important. But the Kevin Spacey stuff, if you remember, on Christmas Eve, Kevin Spacey had that thing where he said, "Let's be frank." And Franks remind us of France, right? Frank, France, and so on. And the reason that he did that on Christmas Eve was because this musical called Rent, thank you, Zenith of the Alpha, for pointing this out a long time ago, but this musical called Rent, it actually began on Christmas Day. I don't know if it says it in here, but the musical begins on Christmas Day. And one of the main guys that is in it is the guy who called out Kevin Spacey for molesting him. We'll find him here. One second. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Anthony Rapp. So this guy was the guy who accused Kevin Spacey of being a sexual predator, right? And this guy's also for being in the production of Rent. And what's even more interesting is way back when in 2015, we were talking about the movie Team America. And how in this movie, it's all coded to the Paris, France ISIS attack that happened in November of 2015. It starts off with a terrorist attack in France, and then the next scene it goes over to America, and this guy is famous for being in a play, and the main song that he is singing is everyone has AIDS. My brother AIDS, my sister AIDS, right? And they're making fun of the movie or the Broadway musical Rent. That's if you look it up, that's what they're doing. They're actually parodying, I can't even say it, but they're doing a parody of the TV show Rent, or the Broadway musical Rent. See if I could find it in here really quick. Team America includes a character who plays a lead role in Lease, a Broadway musical parody of Rent. The finale's song is Everyone Has AIDS. So it skips over to Everyone Has AIDS. So once again, it's this connection to France. And, just after that, Charlie Sheen came out and said that he had HIV. And, there was all kinds of stuff. Charlie Sheen even said he had tiger's blood, right? And then right around that same time, we had a big major mainstream media story about the Missouri Tigers doing a, oh, whatever it was, where they, can't remember, can't think of what it's called, but they wouldn't eat or whatever. I can't think of what it's called. But the Missouri Tigers were doing, they were big in the media at that time. A hunger strike, that's what it was. They were doing a hunger strike, and, you know, there was also the South Park episode where Jared has AIDS, and they were doing the whole Jared from Subway, and they were doing a whole joke on that. And earlier in the year 2015, Jared from Subway had got arrested for child molestation. And we also had that the VMAs, the major song at the VMAs was Bad Blood by Taylor Swift, which was connected to Kanye, which was connected to Slipknot that I have been talking about, and Freddie Mercury. That's why Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie, came out on November 2nd in 2018, the same day that Slipknot tickets to the Iowa State Fair were released. South Park also had that episode about Magic Johnson and getting rid of HIV and so on, right? And it also involved Jimmy Buffett, who was just recently in the media too, right? There was a Jimmy Buffett thing that was going on in the media. Magic Johnson was recently, in the past couple months, just really big in the media. Because remember, Cartman gets AIDS, and then nobody cares about AIDS anymore. And then Jimmy Buffett sings at his benefit, and he sings the song AIDS Burger in Paradise. That's why all of these things keep coming up in the media, because it is connected to these things that I was talking about. And, you know, South Park, the creators of South Park created Team America. Also, Charlie Sheen was important because earlier in the year they had the Charlie Hebdo attack that, I don't want to lose you, but it was connected to a number of things. I even talked about this Mark Wahlberg movie, The Truth About Charlie, and so on. So I see all of this stuff with the number 310 and Roman Polanski from Zach's post, and I'm like, how interesting, and he also mentions how Rosemary, and she does say this in the movie, how she says she's from Omaha, which Omaha, I live right, a little bit less than an hour away from Omaha. I have a whole bunch of connections to Omaha. Live in the Omaha area. Talked about Omaha like crazy, and that was also interesting in regards to the College World Series and then this Gloria Vanderbilt thing. But I have never seen Rosemary's Baby, and I remember a while back somebody talking about it on his radio show, so I wondered if I had blogged about it or looked it up or anything of the sort. And I typed in Rosemary's Baby on my blog, and only one blog post actually comes up. And it's this blog post that I put out on November 19th. And in this blog post, I talk all about the royal family and LeBron James and a bunch of other things. And then the next night, I talked about how possibly LeBron James would get injured, and it was all about the number 34. Then he got injured on the Lakers' 34th game just before turning 34. And, a ton of other things with it. I just made a video on it. And that's what's so funny about it. I made this big old video, and then I notice all of this stuff with that Zach's talking about Roman Polanski and whatnot. So I'm going, it's kind of a synchronicity thing, but not necessarily a synchronicity thing. But in this post that I talked about Rosemary's Baby, I talked about the WWE, and David Arquette was doing a bloody death match around that same time. And if you watched the celebrity death match that was on MTV, a long time ago there was an episode of Prince Charles versus Prince the singer. And remember, in 2016, the Cavaliers won the NBA Finals, and it was all synced up to the death of Prince, and LeBron James was Prince for Halloween earlier in that year. And, he died on the night of a full moon, and Kevin Love dressed up as Jackie Moon from the movie Semi Pro, and a bunch of other things. They was all synced to the singer Prince dying, but it was Prince Charles versus Prince the singer. Charleses in the royal family are, you know, a follower of King Charles was a Cavalier. That's why LeBron James is a Cavalier, and so on. But I just talked about David Arquette, and right around this time there was the Survivor Series where this Enzo Amore guy hijacked the stands or whatever, and he got kicked out. But when I looked this guy up, it said he had just released a new album called Rosemary's Baby Part 1. And someone around that time was talking about Rosemary's Baby, and I'd never seen the movie. So I just kind of documented that it was interesting. And also, when the Cavs made their big comeback, it was after LeBron James wore the WWE Undertaker shirt on 6/12, and the same day as the Pulse nightclub shooting. And then after he won, he wore the Ultimate Warrior shirt to troll the Warriors, right? But so LeBron, it was all synced to the number 51, like LeBron James equals 51, Cleveland equals 51, Cleveland Cavs equal 51. They won Cleveland their first sports championship in 51 years. That's why LeBron James was later Jerome from the movie or the TV show Lawrence for Halloween that next year, because that's all about Channel 51, and Martin Lawrence is 51 years old. But when he wore this WWE Undertaker shirt before they made that comeback, right, in the finals, Ultimate Warrior was 51 years old. The WWE equals 51, and their slogan "Believe equals 51," and so on. It was all synced up to LeBron James, the WWE, and whatever else. So I'm just pointing all of this out, how it's all connected. It's also connected to Prince Charles, who would be King Charles, reminding us of Cavaliers. And, if Queen Elizabeth dies, he'll become the king. But recently we had a whole bunch of interesting titles for these pay-per-views, like the Greatest Royal Rumble that was in Saudi Arabia. Then we had the Crown Jewel, and so on. So, Jamal Khashoggi had just died, and Jamal Khashoggi's cousin was one of the people who died with Princess Diana, who was Prince Charles's former wife in France, right? So it's just important. And the only reason that I figured out this troll theme in Buffy the Vampire Slayer was because of this David Arquette story, because David Arquette is Benny in the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And then just a few days later, we got the story about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Sarah Michelle Gellar from the TV show, and how she had wore this sexy lingerie on Thanksgiving. And I was like, David Arquette and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, there's got to be something going on with this, right? And I documented how Buffy the Vampire Slayer equals 310. The TV show first aired on 310. And then 3 months and 10 days later, Luke Perry died. And Luke Perry was David Arquette's best friend in the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And there was a number of things I'm not going to re-mention, but it was all about the number 310. And once again, Roman Polanski's rape was on 310. Charles Manson died 3 months and 10 days after the anniversary of the murder of Roman Polanski's wife that the Manson family had did. So it's just interesting that my one post where I mentioned Rosemary's Baby on my blog it involves all of these recent things that I've been talking about. And once again, it connects back to this number 310 with Buffy and so on. That's why I, made these blog posts. That's why it's important. And Now I'm wondering about Roman Reigns too, the guy who just came back too. But I'll look into that at a later date. But in this blog post, I documented about Gloria Vanderbilt dying and the College World Series in Omaha, where Rosemary's from, and then this Paul McCartney song that was written and based loosely on her life and whatnot. But I was writing this blog post up and I said, remember the song Piggies is important as well. And, I've talked about how this year, this big August 10th date, is seemingly, or August 11th even, it's seemingly really important to what was going on around the time of late 2016 and throughout 2017, where Zach's house got crashed into, and Monograph made that weird video about telling Zach to watch out, and then later on in April he made that video about the number 166, and I was talking all about the number 166. Zach even mentioned I was talking about the number 166, but Monograph made that video 166 days after my birthday, and the word pigs equals 166. And then that lady called into Zach's radio show talking about Monograph was trying to kill her pet pigs, and my daughter had gave me these two stuffed animal pigs that I was sitting by, and she told me to watch her pet pigs while she went to bed, right? So I had this crazy synchronicity. Now this year is a pig year. Paul Gray the pig. It's important to all of these things. Also, me and Zach, I'm exactly 8 months and 11 days older than Zach. So there's always been this connection between us. And even that video with Monograph and the dead squirrel, it is connected to what I have my life. Because when I was a younger kid, this squirrel used to chase me on my paper route. And I shot a squirrel with a BB gun. It's a big long story, but I always told all these people about this story and how I was the squirrel master at So Wanted. I have a feeling that Monograph video about the squirrel involved me. And, you know, it's this big number. And I have videos in the description where I talk more about this. I'm not going to go into it, but I'm writing up this thing about pigs again, and all of a sudden I hear the TV say, Piggies. And it said, Piggy doesn't like me. And I looked up and I saw the Muppets were playing. My daughter was watching some weird new Muppets cartoon, and, it had Miss Piggy on it. And if you watch this video I had about the death of Granger Smith's son, I talked about, and I shouldn't say it on this video, but whatever. I don't even care anymore. I don't even think that, my family even really watches these anyway. But this Granger Smith, my cousin's wife, her brother, he's actually in a documentary about the military and whatnot that Granger Smith had made. And what the whole gist of this is that all of this Freddy stuff, Freddie Mercury, Freddie Gray, and that's why Paul Gray was important. Kanye West sung the Freddie Mercury song at Glastonbury. Then Freddy Krueger died the day of the VMAs. That Taylor Swift had all these awards, especially for the song Bad Blood. And the Freddie Gray thing was synced up to Freddy Krueger. My uncle Freddie, his birthday is August 10th. And one time he was getting hammered at something, and my Uncle Craig's wife, she's lost a ton of weight, but she used to be a pretty overweight person at the time, and my Uncle Freddie called her Miss Piggy to a few of us, and it was hilarious, right? And I've always thought of that. For some reason, it always reminds me of Miss Piggy when I see her, and it shouldn't, but it does. And his birthday was August 10th. So I thought it was odd that I'm getting this weird synchronicity with Miss Piggy, and I didn't want to tell about it, but it's just too far gone. I have to talk about it. I have to tell people why, and I don't want to be disrespectful to her because I don't want to make her feel bad. But just in case she does watch my videos or this or that, I don't want her to know that my Uncle Freddie called her Miss Piggy at some point in time, but he did, so, and I'll never forget it, and for some reason it's embedded in my brain that he called her Miss Piggy, and so on. And I barely ever see her anyway, but I still feel bad about it. But now that I get the synchronicity with Miss Piggy, it's like I got to tell it to to be truthful and tell people about what I'm talking about. But anyway, I looked up Miss Piggy because I was like, oh, Miss Piggy apparently is important. And when you look up Miss Piggy, you find out that she actually grew up in a small town in Iowa. Huh. Interesting. Just like how, you know, my cousin Craig's wife and him, they both grew up in a small town in Iowa. Just like how I live in a small town in Iowa. And they say most likely Keystone, Iowa. And if you go back to that video, in this video, I talk about how in 2015, my Aunt Cammie, her brother was a principal at the high school in Sioux Falls, South Dakota called Harrisburg High School. And he got shot by a kid named Mason Buell. And he survived, but he got shot. And I talked about how it reminded me of that time. And a lot of what was going on with that story was all about this train symbolism. In 2015, we had the Philadelphia train wreck, and then we had that movie Trainwreck. Then we had a story about the guy named Nicholas Winton, the guy who saved the Jews on the train. We got the French train attack that had like the Alex Scarlettos kid, and the one kid was from Roseburg, Oregon. Then we got the Roseburg, Oregon shooting just after that. And we also had Jared from Subway get child molestation. Think about Subway. 2015 was also the year of the Back to the Future, right? Back to the Future Day. And Doc Brown returns in the train time machine, right? And then it was on October 27th that that movie ends when they return. And that's when the World Series began. The Kansas City went on to win. And then the movie Back to the Future 2, when Marty McFly returns, it's on October 27th, and he even has it was in 1985, the last time the Royals had won the World Series, and he has the KC Daylighters on his truck, and so on. So it was still synced up to Back to the Future, it just wasn't synced up for the Cubs, it was synced up for the team who had won in 1985 when Marty returned Back to the Future. But also what was interesting was that there was this train wreck that we got in Vermont, and that my aunt's brother who got shot that was on CNN, they had the same mom, and their mom lived right next to where that train wreck was that was in Vermont. And when I looked up I was talking a lot about Philadelphia at the time, and there is a train service called the Keystone Service, right? Think about Miss Piggy being from Keystone, Iowa. There was the Keystone Service, and it came to an end in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And my aunt's brother got shot in Harrisburg High School. So I knew there was something important to it. So just interesting. Miss Piggy would be from Keystone, Iowa. Pennsylvania is also the Keystone State. And, I talked about, Philadelphia in regards to the Key of David. And remember I talked about how Jesus was supposed to have the Key of David. Then the next day we got the death of Keon Carpenter, the Atlanta Falcons player, just before the Falcons went on to make the Super Bowl and lose to the Patriots, and so on. What are the odds? Keon Carpenter, Jesus was the carpenter, like literally the next day after I talked about that. And it's important too because Key of David, I'm going to lose you, but Key of David in Jewish gematria, or well, no, not in Jewish, but Key of David, yeah, it is in Jewish, equals 1,189, and just like Donald J. Trump equals 1,189. Remember his 1,189th day as being, or Pope Francis's 1,189th day of being the Pope was on Donald Trump's birthday in 2016, just before the Cavs won the World Series, or won. I'm losing it. Just before the Cavs won the NBA Finals, but there's 1,189 chapters in the King James Bible. Think about Kevin Durant's recent injury. Kevin Durant, 1,189. And think about all the stuff with Slipknot and Corey Taylor. Corey Taylor, 1,189. So I mean, I absolutely know that it is something super duper important. Anyway, I also mentioned that the band Train has this Golden Gate Bridge here. I mentioned how they have this album called Save Me in San Francisco that came out on the anniversary of Philadelphia being founded in 2009. And I mean, notice there, uh, somebody pointed this out in the comments. I want to give them credit here. Wendy Allen. She pointed out that Hey Soul Sister was the first single on the album, and it released on August 11th. Right? This big day that we're talking about, August 11th. Also, she went and looked up the lead singer of Train, and he just so happened to sing the national anthem at Game 6 of the NBA Finals in Oracle Arena when the Raptors beat the Golden State Warriors. What are the odds of all that, right? And then this comes out on October 27th. Just no way, you know what I mean? It's just craziness. So the lead singer of the band Train even sings there. Anderson Cooper's mom even grew up in France. I forgot to point that out earlier. Gloria Vanderbilt grew up in France. So anyway, I make this big post, whatever. And then the next day was a couple days ago now, I guess, but I was at work, and for some reason I didn't post this. I must have fell asleep, or maybe it didn't work. I don't know, but I posted it today. But I was at work, and every day I see the same people over and over. Seems like, small town. But this kid who comes in every day, his total came to 777, and the guy behind him started saying, "Oh, you should buy a lottery ticket because of the 777." And then when he went to pay me, he gave me two $5 bills, and I said, "You might as well give me another five and pay with 15. That would be 555 and 777." And then he said, "It's too bad they don't have a $6 bill," jokingly. And for whatever reason, it put that song in my head by Slipknot called the whatever, I can't remember what the song is, or Heretic Anthem. And he says, "If you're 555, then I'm 666." And the song was just in my head. And the next guy who comes up after them two guys were there, he's wearing this shirt that literally says "Pigs, the original bacon." And I was like, what are the odds that, all that made me think of Slipknot again. Then this guy comes up wearing the shirt that says "Pigs, the original bacon." And no lie, we have these new things that we just got like a week ago. It's like this flavored bacon strips that we sell. They look disgusting. I don't know why anybody would want to eat this like pre-cooked bacon. I don't know. It just looks gross. I don't even want to try it. But swear to you, he is the first guy. He grabs one of them out of there and he hands it to me to ring up. And I said, "Oh, you're buying this because of your shirt?" And he had no idea what I was even talking about. And he like looked at his shirt and he's like, "Oh no, I'm not buying it." No, he's like, "That's not why I'm buying it or whatever. I just thought it looked interesting and I would try it." But so he had no idea, but he was wearing a shirt that said "Pigs, the original bacon." Then he's the first customer that I've ever sold this piece of bacon that we just started selling to. And I thought, what are the odds? I had the Slipknot song. Once again, it reminded me of pigs. I think on the back of it, it said something like "pig farmers," something about pig farmers. So, he's just a pig farmer apparently. But earlier in the day, and I wrote these blog posts weird, but earlier in the day, I was randomly singing the song My Carousel by the band Finger 11. And I knew there was something to it. I couldn't, for some reason, that song just came into my brain and it would not go out of my brain. And it's probably the worst song on the album, The Grayest of Blue Skies, right? The Grayest of Blue Skies, which is funny. And I never even listen to music hardly anymore, but for some reason that song was in my head. And I looked at my phone and I took a screenshot of it because as I was kind of singing that in my head, I don't know if I sung it out loud or not, but I had it in my head for a long time. I noticed that I got this notification that said, Carousel, new album by Loretta Lynn. And I was like, what are the odds of that? And now that I'm noticing, and I typed it in this blog post, but notice that it was 3 minutes until 10 o'clock, 3:10, and Loretta Lynn and Francis Bacon or Frank Baconis equals 310. And when you look this album up, you cannot find it anywhere. Or maybe, I don't know, I cannot find a song by her that's called Carousel. And I can't find a new album called Carousel. So I don't get why this would even pop up, especially when I was thinking about the song Riding My Carousel, and that's the only words I even know of the song, but Carousel pops up. So I know there's something important to it. And, that's why I'm making this blog post here. But it reminded me of back on October 30th, I had this crazy synchronicity with Finger 11 like no other. And there was all of this 11 symbolism. I looked at the clock at 11:11, and I was showing my girlfriend the band Finger 11, and we were in the car, and just so happened to be track 11 when I was listening to it, and I noticed that it was 11:11 at the time, and I can't even remember. 11 days later, I noticed that in my Kanye West playlist. Let me see. Did I put it on here? I didn't put it on here, but 11 days later, I was looking through my old Kanye West and Paris Attack video playlist because he was super connected to the Paris, France attack in 2015. And for some reason, the song First Time was in that playlist by the band Finger 11. And I was like, how did that song get into this playlist? I never added that song into the playlist. It doesn't make any sense. It's not even the last song that was in there. So like somehow it got put in there like at the 18th song of 21, which makes no sense. And the album that the playlist that I was listening to on YouTube was by Jay Johnson, and the one on the playlist was by some other guy named Salivabiskit. So I was like, how did that song even get into this Kanye West playlist? Kanye important to Slipknot, so on. But I went back and I looked at this playlist and Jay Johnson, and the album actually has 11 songs. And a long time ago, I pointed out how the one I was listening to on YouTube, it was, for some reason, was missing a song. And so it had 10 songs. And notice what the song My Carousel is. It is the third song out of 10. 3:10. What are the odds? 3:10. And then I take the screenshot. 3 minutes until 10. And then Loretta Lynn equals 310. And you can't find this song anywhere by her or this album anywhere by her. It absolutely makes zero sense, but it was showing me the number 310. Finger 11 is also a Canadian band, something that I've talked about a whole lot as well. Canada, the connection to France, and so on. Canada is made up of what? Is it 3 territories and 10 provinces, like a 310, and so on. So there's a lot of stuff going on with Canada. Canada really interests me. That's why SummerSlam is on August 11th, which is Hulk Hogan's birthday, and it's going to be held in Toronto, and so on. So, you know, also that the video in the my old post, I documented how that YouTube video had been on. It had been on YouTube before it got into my playlist. It had been on YouTube for 8 years, 10 months, and 3 days. So 8, 10, and 3, right? Just makes me think of 8, 10, and 310 yet again. So who knows? So I documented about all this stuff. Interesting, it has this. This is the first whatever you want to call it, the first recommended video. Neil Young, Harvest Moon. Maybe it's because I've recently listened to it or something. I don't know, but you know that's been important as well. And isn't Neil Young from Canada too? Am I crazy? feel like Neil Young had some ties to Canada or something. Neil Young also from Canada, huh? Well, that makes a lot more sense. And Neil Young wrote the song Philadelphia for the soundtrack Philadelphia that has been really important to Toronto, where he's from. That's hilarious. Born on November 12th. Isn't that? Hold on. That has a connection to Charles Manson, I'm sure of it. Charles Manson, also born on November 12th? Huh. Well, man, I didn't even think about all that. Remember, Neil Young was what Donald Trump first came out to when he announced he was running for president. He came out to "Rockin' in the Free World," and that's why it was big on this Native American theme. And then Donald Trump won the election just after the Indians lost in the World Series, just after the Dakota Access Pipeline stuff got really big in the mainstream media. So, I'll have to keep an eye on that. I have to think more on that. I forgot Neil Young was even from Canada. Canada, I don't know. There's something important to Canada, big time, and it's all synced up to that kneeling during the national anthem, which is synced up to Charles Manson, right? Charles Manson, the Helter Skelter theory, black people rising up, and all about the flag symbolism. And the flag was sewn at 239 Arch Street in Philadelphia. So there's this humongous narrative that is somehow related to it. And the War of 1812, when the national anthem was written, the War of 1812 was also known as a minor theater to the Napoleonic Wars, right? Reminding us of France. I also did point out, though, that the song My Carousel in Frank Baconis equals 262, which is this big number I've talked about in connection to the harvest moon and stuff, but also in connection to the Queen Elizabeth and my old video with Robin Williams and being the king of the moon and the adventures of Baron Munchausen and a bunch of other things. But that's the 262nd day, 9/19. This year will be 9/19 of 19. And it'll be 1 month and 9 days after August 10th. And, just super interesting. Something important to that date. Back when Kanye West sung at the Glastonbury, it was just after Obama had legalized gay marriage on 6/26, a lot like 262, and YouTube did all that copyright stuff. To me, they did it like what? Can't even remember. It was all about this number 262. And it was important to Obama going to Cuba as well. Like, Obama went to Cuba, I think, can't remember what it was. There's something to do with 26 and 2. And that was important because when Pope Francis visited the United States, he first went to Cuba on the date of 9/19. And there's also been this stuff with Guantanamo Bay that has been going on. And Guantanamo Bay was important to Slipknot because of that movie, Harold and Kumar, where they have the guy who just got fired out of Slipknot's mask in that movie. So, there's it's definitely something important. Maybe we need to watch for this day. Maybe something very significant will happen on this day, 6/26. Maybe, it doesn't have to be anything bad. Maybe it just be something significant. I always say that. It's like how gay marriage, I mean, I don't, I guess I don't really disagree or agree with it either way, really, but because it doesn't really affect me or matter, but, you know, it was a big thing, but it wasn't like some big destruction thing. It was just, it was a really big thing that went on that day, though. And think about Iowa in regards to gay marriage, too, right? Iowa was like one of the first states to allow gay marriage, but can't smoke weed. You can marry a dude, but you can't smoke weed, Really, who knows? I guess you could say they're unrelated, but I just feel like Iowa's like so against smoking weed and whatever else, and then well, you get married to a dude, but can't smoke weed. That's all I can say. But anyway, so I document all about this number 11 again, the Synchronicity-Finger 11 that if you go way back, let's just look at my videos really quick. I'll show you. I even have a whole video. Well, I was having all this negative energy, and I still am. And like this is the video where I talked about how there is something important to 2016 and 17, the end of 2016 and all that. And there's just something that is trying to get me to, you know, go against a bunch of people and to go against a bunch of things. And there's some type of negative energy that is just, I just feel it. I don't know how to explain it. And this big date with August 10th and 11th, I feel like it's all synced up to the same thing. And after all of that happened at this time, after all that happened, we had this big revelation and we learned a ton more. So I really hope that's what is going on with this date. Hopefully there isn't, a giant earthquake or, some big false flag. Hopefully it really is just more about getting a better understanding and so on. But I'm not so convinced, but maybe it's a mixture, because they're always doing things, always, whether it's fake or real, we're always getting bad stories in the media. So, we're going to get something bad around this time, but I don't know. I just had this video from way back when where I was talking about this number 11 like crazy, and all these bad things were going on. My laptop just absolutely, completely crashed. It's never crashed like that. Then Derek's laptop completely crashed, right? Derek lost all of his stuff, and I don't know. There's something weird about it that doesn't make that much sense. But losing my train of thought here. So okay. So I document all about this finger 11 stuff at 11. And today at work, I went to work. It was the next day after documenting about all this. And the first time I looked at the clock was literally 11:11. I had to take a picture of it. I was like, what are the odds? I talk about 11 and so on the night before. And then first time I look at the clock, it says 11:11. And the very next customer, someone was in there kind of looking around, and it was a younger girl who works up at the Dairy Suite. And I was like, I bet you anything her total comes to 11. I kept thinking that. I bet her total will come to 11:11 or $11 or something like that. And her total didn't come to $11, but it came to $15.89. And then she gave me $16. And her change is 11 cents. And when I was going to give it to her, she said, oh, you can just keep the 11 cents or whatever, keep the change. So I was like, that's even significant, right? She tells me I'm going to be able to keep it and that you throw in a little cup anyway or whatever, but I got to keep her 11 cents, which is odd that, most people don't leave 11 cents. They get their change. If it's a penny or two, they'll throw it in a little till, but not 11 cents, right? So the next person after me noticing it's 11:11 has change of 11 cents, and then I even get to keep it and throw it in the till or whatever, right? And I started thinking of how I woke up this morning, and, I have my alarm on my phone, but I remember when I woke up, I had this notification on my phone that was about somebody commenting on my video about 11-year-old Amberly Barnett. And, everything about her was 11, right? Amberly equals 31, the 11th prime, and just tons of 31 and 11 in this story because 31 is the 11th prime. And the message was someone did a dark web mystery box opening and found her backpack and I think her phone. And that's interesting. Instantly, it made me think of back in September. It was on September 11th, I watched this movie called Unfriended. I don't know if you've ever watched it. Unfriended Dark Web. And the first Unfriended movie is about this ghost who they made fun of this girl in school, and this ghost comes back of her through social media, through like a Skype conversation, and she starts killing people. But the second movie was called Dark Web, and this kid finds a laptop at the Lost and Found that he steals, and it ends up being these like people who murder people for fun, and they're all about the dark web, right? And throughout the movie, they find this out, then everybody starts getting murdered, and so on. And I watched this movie with my girlfriend on September 11th last year, and the next day I went to work, and I told my girlfriend all about it. I was like, I wonder if that's how they do this. Like, if there's something bigger, I always get all these synchronicities, and I was like, I wonder if somehow there's some type of super technology that they can do it with, because I always think that it's just something else, because it just seems unrealistic that they would know what my brain is thinking at a certain time and then make it come through the TV, right? Which I still think that, but I was just mentioning it to my girlfriend, this is some type of possibility that I don't fully understand or something. And I swear to you that I was at work, and let me just pull it up here. I was at work and she started texting me, and she said, "Okay, do you want me to come over now?" And then she wrote, "Your son's having fun watching the cars drive by the highway," and sent me this picture of my son. And I was like, "Come over now." She knows I'm at work. Why would she write that? It doesn't make any sense. "Do you want me to come over now?" And then she sends me this picture. And I was like, "Come over where?" And then she goes, "Huh?" I was like, "You asked me to come over now." And she's like, "No, I didn't." So I sent her a screenshot of it showing her, "Do you want me to come over now?" That she said that. And then she goes, "No, I didn't." And she showed me her phone, and doesn't have that message on there. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I know she wasn't cheating on me, nothing like that. Absolutely. She didn't have a card to like go anywhere. So I don't know how she'd be cheating on me, and it doesn't make any sense. She had my son and everything. But I was like, how, I even wrote, well, what the fuck? Like, seriously, like, I don't get it. We were talking about this movie. And then later on in the conversation, I even texted her that. And I was like, isn't that weird that last night we were talking about this movie and technology and so on, and now all of a sudden you text me a message and you didn't even really text it, and we're both confused and so on, right? So I was like, what is going on here? And then later on, my computer froze up when I got home, and a bunch of other things, So it just reminded me of that, the dark web, bringing this up. And I went and watched that video, and it's this video right here. And I don't know if it's real or not. I have no clue, but these people, they have 500,000 subscribers. So it right when I see that, I think, not legit. It's probably fake, and they just do this for entertainment and whatever else. They didn't really get a box off the dark web. But in this box, there's a school bag, and it says the words A. Barnett on the bottom, like Amberly Barnett, and so on. And that's what this person is talking about. And this video came out on August 3rd, which, these people are crazy. They do kill people. I've been saying this forever, how I feel like they might choose people out of a crowd and their numbers fit, and they wait until the time is right, and then they murder people, right? And you always hear all these things about satanic cults doing rituals and eating people and eating babies and drinking their blood and whatever else. And if you watch both parts of these videos, later on in the second part, the whole thing is about eating babies and killing kids and eating babies and stuff. So they find these voodoo dolls and so on. So it doesn't really, put it past me that it is legit, but it seems like it's not legit to me. But, it's just weird. So I watched this video, and I even talked about it, how I didn't know if it was real, but it was all about eating babies. And I blogged about another 11 synchronicity at work. This Mexican guy came in, and he gave me $11, he said, and he owed 17, so he's still like fumbling through his pocket to get more ones out. And he only gave me 10 when I counted it. And then he's like, that's 11 or whatever. And I was like, no, it's 10, and I laid them all out and I counted them, and then he's like, all right, so he had to get one more dollar out, and he finally gave me 17. So I was like, huh, that's not really a synchronicity, but it's weird that it would involve the number 11 yet again. And the next person that was in line came up and they said, and it was my cousin Kyle, who was the nephew of that principal who got shot, my aunt's brother, right? And I barely ever see him either, but he was in the store and he's like, I had 29.50 in gas, and I looked up at the screen and there was only two gases on there, and they're both for 29.50, and I was like, which pump? And then, I mean, and then I said, oh, I guess it doesn't matter. They're both the same amount, but I was like, what are the odds that they're both 29.50? You know, what, like, out of all the numbers that it could be that people stop on gas, the two people at that time, just after this weird 11 thing, they both were at 29.50 of all numbers that you can fill your gas tank up to. What are the odds that both of them were 29.50? And I knew both of their names, and one of them's an old guy who comes in and gets lottery tickets almost all the time. And then it's my cousin. And when I was typing in their names in the Gematrinator to see if there was a connection, for some reason my letter K started getting stuck. It's like, I was like, what in the world? I didn't even notice it. I typed in a bunch of stuff, and then I scrolled down and I noticed that somehow I was typing in the letter K. K, of course, is the 11th letter. So somehow my letter K wasn't working properly when I was looking up this stuff about him. You know what I mean? This is absolutely ridiculous. It's like, how did my letter K of all letters just get stuck at that certain time? Where I went up to the Gematrinator. Like, I'll just show you what I was talking about. Like, I was up here and I typed in like my cousin's name. And I pushed enter, and then when I scrolled down, I typed in all this stuff. Then I scrolled down and I was going to compare it, and of course they had that weird K in there. Like, how did that extra K get in there? But K is the 11th letter, so it makes a lot of sense. I'm running out of breath here. I'm rambling. This video is gonna be longer than crap. But in the mix of it, so as all of this is going on, I get a notification on my phone, and it's from Becky Three Fingers, which sounds naughty to me, right? But when you look this person up, it looks like it's a little kid or something. Like, they drew this cartoon character and wrote some story, and their spelling is so terrible, it looks like a younger kid did it. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, say, like, they spelled neck wrong and all kinds of stuff. But, like, their message makes absolutely no sense, too. It has to be a trolled comment. But they commented on this old video about an old music video from 2014. You know, I made Horny Bear Trap or whatever. And it says, no Aubrey. Safety of the most part is, I think it's a little late for work tomorrow night. If the weather, it was just wondering how are. Like, what does that even mean? It just sounds like a bunch of jumbled up words. Like, how does that even make any sense whatsoever, right? So I was like, that has to be something important. And I don't even know. It just doesn't make any sense. I looked up this person. They also commented on one of the commenters on that video, and they wrote a bunch of nonsense too. Like, what does that even mean right there? You know, it really makes no sense whatsoever. But I thought it was interesting that it was about eating babies, and then when I went and watched this person's one video, it seemed like they were like a young child, which maybe it's some type of person trolling and showing me something, and they just stole some random young child's video and put it on their channel. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't surprise me. I've seen all kinds of weird stuff. If I've been uploading a video once. I was uploading a video a long time ago. This guy named Galactic Wacko all of a sudden started talking shit to me, and he was talking shit to me about the exact topic that was in my video that I had never talked about before, but he somehow knew that I was talking about it before I was even talking about it, you know? And then all of a sudden his channel was absolutely deleted. He's no longer even on YouTube for some reason. You know, he had a bunch of subscribers and a bunch of videos at least. Well, I don't remember how many subs he had, but he had a bunch of videos and all of a sudden he just disappeared. Like, how did he know what I was talking about in the middle of me uploading a video? Which is that type of stuff has happened to me multiple times. So there's just no way. There's people on here that are absolutely messing with me, and I've been talking about this clear back with this 11 video, right? That 11 video that I showed earlier. There are people that are messing with my brain and trying to get me confused and pissed off, and not pissed off at the world, but pissed off at people like Zach and Derek and so on, right? People who are searching for truth. So I gotta find my post again here, but their message just made me wonder, safety of the most part. I think it's a little late for work tomorrow night. So just wondering if there's something important about tomorrow night. Safety of the most part. It's a little late for work tomorrow night. Maybe there's something important. Maybe they're trying to show me something about tomorrow night. I don't know, but in this video, at the very last line is I say, "I'm sorry, sir. I'm a really good fella, and now I'm on display at the local Cabela's," which is like a hunting type store, fishing, hunting, and whatnot. And I'm a bear in this video, right? So it makes sense. Like I'm on display at the local Cabela's, and I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there. I don't know if this has anything connected to it, but I recently saw they brought up that story about Sydney Loof, the missing girl in uh, Nebraska again, and can't think of his name was Aubrey too. Aubrey, dude. I know. Maybe it is connected. Hold on. Hold on a second. Let me look this up. Just bear with me for a minute here. Sydney Loof. I know we just locally there was a recent story. Yeah, the guy who killed this girl from Nebraska, his name was Aubrey. Aubrey Trail. That is interesting that I would even just document about this and put this together. Look at it. No Aubrey. Maybe it's a stretch, but no Aubrey, and then the guy who kills Sydney Loof is Aubrey Trail. And randomly I talk about it because Cabela's is headquartered in Sidney, Nebraska. We just got a local story about the Sydney Loof case with Aubrey Trail getting sentenced or something. And then I pointed out that tomorrow's 222 days after my birthday, like Nebraska Cornhuskers that she was synced up to. Amberly Barnett equals 222, August 10th, the 222nd day, and so on. So if you go from my birthday to the day that Amberly Barnett went missing, it's 3 months and 19 days. And if you're at Aubrey, it equals 319, like Omaha, Nebraska. So I don't know. Interesting. We'll see what happens. I wonder if I don't know. That blows my mind. I didn't even really piece that together until now. So also Rosemary and Rosemary's Babies from Omaha. So maybe there's something important to that. In Rosemary's Baby, she figures out what's going on because of the witch book, and her friend tells her that it's the names are an anagram. So just wondered if this is somehow an anagram. That's an anagram. Maybe Aubrey or whatever is an anagram of something. I don't know what it would be. It doesn't seem to make that much sense. Maybe the word reward or something like that, or I don't know. I can't figure it out. No, it still doesn't make sense. So Weird that I would have that. I see that Aubrey Trail equals 262 as well, just like my carousel. Carousel. So, huh. I don't know. Maybe it's not significant, but it's just the weirdest comment of all time. And, in regards to all these satanic ritual type things, remember how some girl was telling me about her dad was the mayor in Erling, Iowa, a while back, where I was talking about the one of the first famous exorcisms and so on. And then I thought it was just a troll, and it turned out to be like a young girl. So it's just weird. And then I found this other guy who's on YouTube who said he was part of I think he said he was part of the Franklin cover up and whatever, and he lives in Erling, Iowa, and said that he was born into a family of Satanists, a bunch of other things. And I don't know, it makes me wonder. 9/11 super connected to Nebraska with Dick Cheney being from there, and then also after 9/11 happened, George Bush came to Offutt Air Force Base. The night before, I saw a UFO. Just drove through that town too, where I saw that UFO, and I told my girlfriend about it and explained to her exactly how it happened, and she still thinks I'm crazy. But dude, it was as tall as a telephone pole, floating metal H. Never forget it. The highway that it was on, where it meets, was F-66, like 666. That thing followed us. It stayed to the side of us. When we stopped the car, it stopped and hovered there. I mean, it was before cell phones, before you could get a picture, we had disposable cameras. No way. Something big was going on that day. Next day, 9/11 supposedly happened. George Bush came to Offutt Air Force Base. I have videos on it somewhere, so September 10th, you know, night before 9/11. It was like, came back for a JV football game to my hometown, and then we went back to Council Bluffs, and there was a UFO. I'm telling you, I don't know if it was a drone or what it was, but the thing was crazy and it could go fast as hell. So, able to leave video there. I'm getting like super tired. I got to work a little bit, but just trying to keep up with some of these videos and talk about the synchronicity. And, like I said in the beginning of the video, it's only for people who have been following me for a while. I didn't really organize it as well as I probably should have, but there's still something really just that's super important to August 10th. I'm telling you. It's weird that Zach was talking about this movie. I've never even seen the movie, and then, it's connected to Roman Polanski. There's a big Charles Manson narrative that has been going on. I don't even think Zach realized that I've been talking about it because I make these videos so long. I don't even think he even watches my videos anymore. So, no big deal. Just saying, I really don't think he talked about it because of what I've been talking about, that's for sure. Watch for something with train. Train seems important. But, oh, who knows? I am super tired. I'll leave it there. Have a good one. Peace.